Good afternoon. This is Ed Salzberg, and I welcome you to our webinar on 7 Steps to Maximize GSA Scheduled Sales, and we're featuring Jennifer Schaus, who's a real expert in this area. People on this webinar, and there are quite a number of you, are interested in doing either business with the federal government, getting started, or doing more business with the federal government, and this is one of the primary ways to do that through the General Services Administration schedules. We're going to try to get into the presentations really quickly. After doing some quick introductions, we'll launch into Jennifer's presentation, and then we should have plenty of time at the end for questions from the audience. And if you look at your GoToMeeting panel, you'll see that there's a place to add questions, and I'll monitor those, and we'll get through as many as we can at the end of the session. Before we jump in to the sessions, I just wanted to introduce myself. I do government consulting through my company, ERS Advisors, and Jennifer has been consulting for, I think, around 15 years, and focuses on operations and schedules and bringing clients' processes up to speed so they're as good as the best in the business. We have several sponsors, and let me just run through them quickly. The Small Business Training Center is supporting us, and I just wanted to mention that this is a great place to go to get help with government contracting. The NCRC, which is the National Community Reinvestment Coalition, which runs the Small Business Teaming Center. They're headquartered in Washington, and they have the contract to run that center, and this is just a great place to go for government contracting support. They can help with RFPs and teaming and winning strategies for contracts, and it's funded by a Small Business Administration grant, and I just point you toward their website. If you haven't been up there, you really should go. Set Aside Alert is primarily a publication service, and they pay attention to what's happening that impacts small businesses. They have a newsletter, a monthly newsletter, and then daily alerts for small businesses, for preference contractors, 8A, HubZone. This is an inexpensive way to keep your finger on the pulse of what affects you in terms of opportunities within the government. Jimmy Baker, is a sidekick of mine. He wrote the book on how to win business from the federal government. It's a resource I use all the time, and he shows you how to identify where the government is spending money from public sources. It's pretty eye-opening. If you go up on his site, you can see how to order the book. It's not very expensive, and it's just well worth the investment. My services focus primarily on business acquisition processes, training, capture management, and pipeline management. And if you look at my website /webinar specials, I have something up there that's just special to the webinars that I do, where I bundle some things together. I bundle a data management system with a training program, make it very inexpensive. It's not open to the public, but if you do come to the webinars and go to /webinars special, you'll see what that is. But I really want to introduce Jennifer Schaus. She's one of the real experts in what to do to win business through your GSA schedule. It's not enough just to have the schedule. You have to have a good strategy and a way to actually bring work through it. Many firms have the schedules. Thousands of firms do. But very few firms do that well on them, and Jennifer is an expert on how to meet your sales goals with the schedule. She does other things too in terms of small business investment, the research program, and helping firms navigate that, developing sales and marketing programs. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer to move right into her presentation. So Jennifer, I just turned control of the screen over to you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ed, and welcome, everybody. Good morning to our friends and colleagues on the West Coast, and good afternoon to everybody on the East Coast. I appreciate the opportunity to address the audience today and talk about how to maximize your GSA schedule. That is, as Ed had mentioned, just one component of the services that we offer for businesses who wish to sell their products or services to the government. The slide right there kind of goes through the other kind of pieces of the puzzle that we offer. So what I'm going to talk about today are some tips on how you can get the most out of having a GSA schedule. Hopefully, if you are one of the 20,000 companies that hold the schedule, you are meeting the $25,000 sales quota. Right now, there's about 60% of companies who do not meet that. threshold, so they're in jeopardy of losing their schedule, and GSA is kind of out to kind of tidy up things and remove those contractors. So our first one, spread the word. This is very, very simple, but if we were in a room right now and I asked everybody to stand up who held a schedule and to remain standing, if you had your GSA logo on your website, on your business card, in your email, auto signature, on all of your marketing materials, when you go to trade shows and that sort of thing, I think there'd still be very few people standing. So something that's very simple. It's not going to make your phone ring or get you an order, but it's just part of the branding and basic marketing 101 that comes with having a schedule. You've got it. It's a marketing tool, so you may as well promote it and let everybody know that you've got it. Put out a press release once you do obtain your GSA schedule. Make sure that when the government does happen to land on your website, that on that first home page that you do have a link to your GSA schedule products and pricing. And make sure that this information is on your business card as well, including any other pertinent information such as, say, your NAICS codes or CAGE code or any other certifications or registrations that you may have. So it's very simple, but it's amazing to me how many companies and people have not just done the basics there. And as we go to our next slide. Okay. Number 2, be compliant and current. Obviously, GSA has many terms and conditions that you need to adhere to, and some of the basic ones that can help you win some sales are just being compliant with the basics. GSAadvantage.gov is where the government will go to do keyword searches for products, whether it's pens and pencils, janitorial supplies, bulletproof vests, x-ray machines, whatever it is they're purchasing, they will go there. You want to make sure that you, just like as you would if you were selling something on eBay or Amazon, that you've got pictures, that you've got a complete description, that you do have a link back to your website to get more detailed information about the product. So make sure that everything there is listed and current, and it's pretty and tidy. Additionally, on GSA eLibrary, you want to make sure that your terms and conditions are listed there. Doesn't sound like a big deal, but hopefully your terms and conditions do include some incentives for the government, such as volume discounting, where the government would then be able to see those volume discount or dollar threshold purchases. And you can also list that on the GSA Advantage website as well. GSA eBuy, again, it's kind of surprising to me that many companies that do have a GSA schedule have either forgotten or didn't realize that they need to sign up for GSA eBuy. This is a system where by GSA, when they're going in and searching for products and they've got in or services, they can then send out an RFP specific to a particular GSA schedule and specific to particular SIN numbers, the special item numbers that further identify your product. You can have, I think it's up to 10 different email addresses listed in the GSA eBuy, and sometimes on a daily basis you may get 2 or 3 RFPs that will be set-aside purchases just for your GSA schedule. Again, the first 2 slides is very basic and simple, and again, it's probably pretty common that most companies have not really taken the time to make sure that the people that they've got listed on GSA eBuy are current and that they are receiving those notifications. And we can move on to the next slide now. Number 3, sleeping with the enemy. This one I think is important in really any aspect, whether you're selling to the government or you're selling to consumers. It's always good not to look at your competitors as competitors. They could be offering a complimentary service, or they may be offering the same service, and they may have perhaps another marketing tool that you don't, such as, say, the 8A certification. So looking at different companies, perhaps of different sizes, whether they're large prime contractors that you can potentially subcontract with, getting into some sort of mentor-protege program, and again, looking at companies that have differentiators. At this point, let me give you guys an example. We host a networking event over at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. for government contractors. And when we first started doing this about 3.5 years ago, there was a young woman that came to some of our events. She may even be on the call. Her name's Lisa James. She's got a small business. She's 8A certified and really sharp businesswoman. And she had told me that she was looking for some different partners to help sell to the government. A couple months later, there was a gentleman that showed up. His name is Isaac Barnes. He's got an IT company, similar to what Lisa's company does, but slightly different. And Isaac was getting ready to bid on some work with the Navy, and he needed, I believe it was the Navy, and he needed to find an 8A partner. So through the course of the networking event at the Kennedy Center, these two people shook hands, got to know each other, ended up partnering on a very nice-sized government contract. So they could have, seen each other just on paper and said, "Oh, that's a competitor. I want nothing to do with them." But instead, they turned it into a positive, formed a nice team, and I believe that they've still continued working together on some different contracts. So there can be some great successes with working with people that you perceive as competitors. And we can move on to the next slide. Number 4, who loves you? A lot of companies forget that many different entities can purchase from the GSA schedule. Obviously, the federal agencies are in that bucket. State and local government are also eligible in certain cases for particular schedules. Schedule 84 and Schedule 70. 84 is for security and law enforcement, and Schedule 70 is for IT services. Those two schedules are completely open through something called cooperative purchasing to state and local government purchases. Quasi-government agencies would be considered as the United Nations, the World Bank, the Red Cross, the IFC, the IMF. These entities also are able to purchase through the schedule. And then obviously, there's some non-obvious federal agencies, Bureau of Indian Affairs, or some other smaller agencies that you may not think of, but you really don't want to take them off of your target list. So find out who uses the schedule, are they buying your products and services through the schedule, and those are obviously going to be the likely fits or targets for your solutions. Now we can move on to the next slide. Number 5, call the doctor. GSA schedule is simply a marketing tool. It's by no means ever going to make your phone ring or your fax or populate your inbox with orders. RFPs, yes, but orders, no. So you still need a human being, somebody with a heartbeat that knows both your industry as well as maybe the top 3 or 5 agencies that you're targeting. It comes down to relationships. So you really do need to have somebody that gets it, somebody that can help push, promote, and highlight your solution. The other part of this call the doctor slide is what I'll call diagnose and remedy. Sometimes it makes sense, and sometimes it's a financial decision for a company not to hire a full-time employee because they just don't have the bandwidth to do so. So it makes sense to pull in perhaps an outside consultant, either who knows your industry very well or who knows the agencies that you're targeting. And I'll give you an example here. The way that we run our business is my expertise is in the GSA schedule, but I've got more or less my Angie's list of consultants that I work with and I have worked with over the years that provide parts of the puzzle that I cannot fulfill. So one of those people is a lady by the name of Barbara Zackheim, and her company is Keith R. Scott Associates. She helps our clients with the civilian agency marketing plans and sales. So in the past, we've had clients that have come to us for GSA schedule help, and maybe they're a little bit premature in doing so. So we usually send them to Barbara. She can kind of help get them ready, prepare them, get them in the door at some of the agencies, find out how those agencies are purchasing, and then they circle back with us for the GSA schedule piece. We've done this on numerous occasions, so I could go through a list of probably 10 or 20 companies that we've collaborated on or kind of shared the work. So keep in mind that it does help sometimes to have an outside person looking in, whether it's helping you with your government sales or marketing or GSA schedules. And we can move on to the next slide. Number 6, stay informed. Knowledge is obviously power. Being more educated about the market certainly makes sense and is going to equip you more than somebody that's jumping in and perhaps doesn't know the acronyms or doesn't know and understand the process of selling to the government and really what's involved. In regards to the GSA schedule, you want to stay abreast of what's happening with your contract with them. GSA has a website called GSA Interact. If you're not on that, you should be. There's a lot of good information, discussions going on from both inside GSA as well as outside. The next bullet there, FSSI, kind of makes my stomach hurt when I think of it, but it's the Federal Strategic Sourcing Initiative. It's basically GSA's initiative to start closing down schedules, increase their volume purchases so that they are getting better discounts, and in a way it actually is limiting companies who can get on the schedule. And I won't get into my opinions of the process or initiative, but if anybody has questions, I'm happy to take those offline. The other good information that GSA has is SSQ. It's the Schedule Sales Query public website that you can go on and find out really what has happened in all of the schedules as far as how much has been sold through certain schedules, who the vendors are, how much they've sold. You can look at the purchases by quarter, annualized, by the SIN numbers, by the schedule number. You can really slice and dice the data any way you want. They'll put it in nice Excel formats for you so you can sort it and use it to obviously meet your needs. GSA also has a lot of conferences throughout the year, so you want to stay abreast of those as well and really just keep track of what's happening. And we'll move on to the next slide. Number 7, be the crossing guard. This to me is really kind of hitting home because you want to stop your competition, direct your contracts and purchases through the schedule, and keep things moving in that direction. How can you stop the competition? I'll give you an example. We've got 2 clients that really do this well. One is a company that we're in the process of helping them get onto the schedule. They provide training equipment for athletes. Some of their customers include Tiger Woods and Michael Phelps. So it's a products company, very interesting, and they have a couple competitors, not a lot, but they're currently selling to the Navy SEALs and the military and DHS and some of the other obvious suspects for that type of equipment. So they realize that their competition does not have a schedule. By getting on the schedule, they can then eliminate some of the competition and start directing the purchases through the relationships that they've got with the government through the schedule. Another good example is one of our customers who builds ships for the Navy. They currently have a schedule. I think they're in their 3rd renewal period for the schedule. And again, through the relationships that they've got with the Navy, they will come up with different items that the Navy wants to purchase. We'll then assign a product number to it and add it to the schedule. That product number is going to be specific. The description is very specific as far as what the Navy wants to purchase from them. It's on the schedule. None of their competitors are going to have this same item, and they really funnel their business through the schedule in that fashion, and it works great. So it's a good way, again, to keep out competition, but you really do need to have the relationships in place, whether, again, it's a part-time consultant, a full-time person. And, you know, a GSA schedule is not the holy grail or a silver bullet. It really does take a human interaction as well. And we can move on, I believe, to the last slide, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. Let me serve up a few questions that are coming up. One is, what's the address for the SSQ website?
I believe it's http://ssq.gsa.gov. Otherwise, our friend Google, I'm sure, could certainly answer that for you.
And we can put it on the slides when we make them available to people, and they'll be available tomorrow along with access to the webinar recording as well.
Okay.
Second question is, what advice do you have to a firm that wants to get started with the federal business? Is it the GSA schedule the first thing to do?
Absolutely not. And we tell prospects this all the time. The first step is the market research. Find out really how much the government buys everything and anything. They're the world's largest purchaser of goods and services. So 9 times out of 10, yes, they are going to be purchasing your product or service, but you really need to scale it. Find out who's buying it within the agencies, how are they buying it, meaning are they using a GSA schedule or some other mechanism? What does your competition look like? If all of your competition are service-disabled, veteran-owned women businesses with an 8A certification, then that may serve you better actually than getting a GSA schedule. So before you jump in and think that this is going to work wonders for you, you really need to do that research.
Can you give us an example of something that really worked well? And me jumping in, I know you gave that one example of the two firms that didn't compete but teamed up, but I think what the person is looking for is a real success story that maybe you work with a firm that changed, and you maybe changed the way they approached the business or used the schedule.
The example that I gave on number 7, the training equipment company for athletes, they're really going to be, I think, ahead of their competition by having a schedule where they know that their competition is also selling to the government but doesn't have a schedule. And they're not woman-owned, they're not veteran-owned, they're not in a hub zone, so they don't have any of the other boxes to check off. So having the schedule and having the relationships on the ground with the government buyers will certainly help them eliminate competition. And then the example I gave for the client that we've got that builds the ships for the Navy, they work well with the Navy. The Navy tells them kind of, here's what we want to buy. My client then goes back and designs what he needs to. We assign a part number to it. We add it to the schedule. The Navy buys it. None of the competition has it. So it's a nice differentiator, but there's really a lot of work that you need to do ahead of obtaining a schedule for it to work for you.
Jennifer, is there a list of eligible organizations from that earlier slide where you showed state and local and then alluded to other organizations that could use it? Is there a central place to go to get a list of those?
Yes, I believe, I'll have to double check. I think it might actually be on my website. If not, we can add a link to the presentation. If it's on my website, it would be under the press and info section. It should just be like a 2-page document that has a list of all the GSA buyers. And sometimes, I'm glad that topic came back up because sometimes the buyers outside of the federal government do not even realize that they can purchase from the schedule. So sometimes it becomes an education piece on your part as a seller to the buyer, letting them know that, yes, you can purchase from the schedule. And, I mean, the real value is that it will eliminate the paperwork for the buyer on the upfront end because your company has already been vetted. They know that you've got the financial strength to handle a government contract and that they are receiving the best price for your product and or services.
Does the schedule go with a company if it's sold?
That would probably be more of a legal question. But I would think that I'm going to guess yes, but I would prefer to consult with one of the attorneys that we use on it.
Mm-hmm. In my experience, it would need to get novated along with any other contract, so it is a legal question.
Right.
So I don't think it's assured that it would, but as long as the new firm didn't violate any of the rules in which that contract was originally awarded, it could be novated if the contract officer agrees to it.
Right, and there are modifications that you can make. So if that was the case, you would then have to contact GSA, submit a modification for the novation process.
Oh, here's a long question. And I've got a narrow window.
Okay.
Okay, we are preparing our MOBIS proposal now. Do you know, let's see, one, can we use government contract invoices to document labor category pricing required to demonstrate the most favored pricing for specific labor categories? We're also using our commercial work invoices. Is it always necessary for contracting offices to get 3 quotes for GSA schedules? So that may be a separate question. So the basic question is, how do you document your labor rates?
Labor rates, so your GSA schedule, the 99% of the work involved in the documentation is going to be based on your commercial sales practices. So you will want to supply invoices for your commercial rates, and then also, obviously, your invoices for your most favored customer. Typically, your most favored customer, you cannot use the federal government agencies. If you have, say, a nonprofit, educational institution, or another commercial customer, perhaps, that receives lower rates, and it can even be a prime contractor that maybe you've subbed on, you could use those. And then what was the second half of the question? I'm sorry.
Oh, let's see. The second half was about the quotes. Yes. Do the contracting officers require three quotes for each procurement or award?
Over the $25,000 threshold, yes, but for small businesses under, I believe it's under $100,000, no. But let me double check on that one.
Okay. Here's a specific one. We currently provide language services to different state government agencies in Michigan. These government agencies currently do not utilize the GSA schedule for our industry. Should we get on a GSA schedule before trying to get the state government to use it, or vice versa? Good question.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would kind of just go back to, you don't want to get the schedule and then start shopping it around. You want to first kind of conduct that market research, find out how these organizations are purchasing. And if you're in Michigan, there may even be, I'm not as familiar with the state and local government contracting, but some of the states do have multiple award schedules that will potentially grandfather in your GSA schedule or use similar terms and conditions. Michigan may have a state contract, so I think instead of pursuing a GSA schedule, you may want to look at conducting some market research first to find out how they are purchasing. And for example, California has something called the CMAS, California Multiple Award Schedule, and that state will use the GSA schedule terms and conditions. But yeah, if you're dealing at the state and local level, GSA schedule would not be my first choice. But call some of the buyers, look at some of the RFPs, get registered in their vendor database. If you go to the Michigan.gov site, I'm sure there's a government contractors database, and you can start getting RFP notifications. And with those will be some names, phone numbers, email addresses for the NAICS codes that those buyers are purchasing. Call that person and ask them how they purchase. And that should then be your kind of driver for where you go next.
Here's another two-part question. What does it cost to go after a GSA schedule? And then what happens after I submit it? And I think what they mean is, what kind of a time frame can I expect? Is it just checking the boxes off and I'm going to get the award? Is there anything I can do to expedite that? I think things along those lines is what I read into that question.
Okay. We get those questions all the time, and they're very common, so I'm glad that somebody asked. The cost to you for a GSA schedule, if you did it yourself, you would simply have to pay for the digital certificate. Those, I think, right now are about, I want to say, $180, and I could be wrong because it's been a while since I've obtained mine. The other cost to you, there's an open ratings report that you have to obtain. It's basically an independent survey that goes out to a minimum of 4 of your customers, and hopefully they are 4 happy customers. The open ratings report, I believe, is also about $180. Other than that, if you did it yourself, it's just your time, blood, sweat, and tears. As far as if you used a consulting firm, there's prices out there that range from $3,000 to $30,000. So just depending upon what level of service and quality you're looking for. As far as the time frame, realistically, you're probably looking at about, I'll say, 1 to 3, potentially 4 months to get together a compliant and competitive proposal. Once you submit that to GSA, depending upon the schedule, it can range, I'll say, anywhere from 2 months to 16 months for GSA to review it. And again, the discrepancy is because schedules are broken down by the products or services that you offer. So some of the schedules are more inundated right now than others. Therefore, there's the discrepancy in the 2 to 16 months wait time, which is a little absurd, but that's just the reality. At that point, once GSA reviews your schedule, they will either come back with one of 3 kind of next steps. So it's either going to be a rejection, meaning that you weren't compliant, and so you kind of have to start from scratch and redo everything. Number 2, they could come back with something called clarifications, and it could be just simple questions that they want additional invoices, they want another year of financial statements, or just additional information that they have questions on. The third option is that they could say, this is great, we love what you sent us, let's move to the price negotiations. At that point, once you get to the price negotiations, GSA looks at the products or services that you proposed, whatever prices you're proposing to them, and many times they'll try to push for additional discounts, whether it's additional percentage or additional volume discounts or prompt payment discounts. And then to kind of wrap things up from there, I would tack on another month and a half to get to the next phase, which is actually the award and then uploading your products and services to the GSA Advantage website.
So if you add all of that up, we're talking about 1.5 years to 2 years, perhaps?
It can be less than a year, just depending upon the schedule. If you're working with a schedule that's got a pretty quick turnaround, you can get this done pretty fast. The only thing that would really expedite this is if you had a pending order for the products and services that you're proposing to GSA, and you've got a government agency that basically is indicating to GSA that, yes, we're going to purchase from ABC company these products. So that's really the only thing that's going to push you through any faster.
Have you found that to be true across all of the schedules, or are there just certain ones where it could be customer driven like that to get them to expedite the award?
I mean, GSA is, they make their money from the schedule holders. They basically charge you 0.75% every quarter of your GSA schedule sales. So they're motivated to get companies on that they know will be selling.
Right.
Their priority is to work with clients or GSA schedule holders who are currently holders versus reviewing new proposals.
That certainly makes sense.
Right. So when I'm submitting a modification for our client out in San Diego that's building ships for the Navy, we can get that done pretty quick because they know that most of the time there's going to be an order within a matter of a couple days, sometimes hours, once it's approved, versus the contracting officer looking at their desk and they've got a stack of proposals that they've got to look through and review for people who are trying to get on the schedule who may or may not make it.
And my follow-on question to that is, when you're putting the schedule together, is there a way to demonstrate that you do have good relations or access, or that there is a high likelihood that if you do get the award quickly that you know how to use it and chances are you're going to be getting work to come through it. Does that help by being able to do that?
It certainly does. In the for the services companies, you can use your project experience. Then should you want to highlight as much government work as possible. It's certainly not required, but it absolutely helps. Additionally, in your marketing plan, you can indicate the different government trade shows that you're attending, and that you do have relationships with government directly as well as prime contractors.
And are all the task orders posted to usaspending.gov?
Well, for the GSA schedule purchases, you can easily find those on FedBiz Ops if it's set aside. Or again, back to that the second slide, being compliant. You want to make sure that you've got at least 2, if not 3 people within your company that are receiving those GSA schedule RFPs. So if somebody's looking for financial and accounting services, they're going to go onto that schedule, that particular special item number, send out a solicitation to anyone that's registered for that particular schedule and SIN, and they're registered in the GSA e-buy, and those people with that with emails registered will then receive an instant notification that they've got an opportunity to respond to the RFP. You don't have to, but it's just another way to get those notifications.
Right. It's much more precise to go to the homepage for the schedule or FBO to be tracking that.
Right.
So here's one about a product and service provider to the military. They provided a service as a one-off for about $5,000. Will a schedule allow the clients to more easily buy multiple products and increase the threshold level? So it sounds like maybe they got a purchase order, and should they quickly follow up with a GSA schedule for that client?
So you're saying that the first purchase was not through the schedule?
Sounds like it wasn't.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. If you have a schedule and you've got products on it, you're more or less required that if you're dealing with a GSA eligible buyer and your products are on the schedule and that buyer is interested in purchasing those products, that it should be run through the schedule. And you particularly want to do that if you haven't met the $25,000 sales quota.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a feel for which industry categories are getting more federal budgets? Which ones are trending upward for federal purchasing?
I don't know that anything's really trending upwards these days, but IT is always hot, as well as security products and services. The MOBA schedule does pretty well as well. And again, you can go onto that ssq.gsa.gov website to really do comparisons of the schedules and look at upward trends over the last. I think they've got about 4 or 5 years of data on there. But I'll kind of give you the reciprocal of that question. With that FSSI initiative, the Federal Strategic Sourcing Initiative, certain schedules are being cut, eliminated, and closed, including office products, janitorial, supplies and services. So you kind of want to look at that, especially if that's something that you're either a schedule that you're currently on. You want to find out and understand how those changes will affect you positively or actually negatively, and make sure you just understand the repercussions and what you can do to still remain a federal buyer or federal seller.
So does that mean some of the products are no longer bought through GSA, but they're just bought other ways then?
Right, through this FSSI program, and I think there are 7 or 8 agencies who have basically signed this agreement to only purchase through that mechanism. So that will have a big effect, I think, on small businesses, on the economy, on schedule holders. But I guess the overall goal, they say, is for the government to decrease spending and obtain greater volume discounts. So,
So it's going to be larger purchases then through there.
Correct.
And
Correct.
do you still see a role for small business there, or is that going to kind of squeeze out the small firms?
In my opinion, I think it really slams the door on small businesses, especially, I mean, the economy out there, just the standard B2B economy is pretty ugly, and so a lot of companies are considering the government as a place to sell their products and services. And say it's a guy that started a business and he's got some janitorial equipment and supplies and services that he wants to pitch, and now he's really going to be shut out of that opportunity. So,
It does really differ in terms of what services and probably what agencies as well, because there's a big push in some agencies to use only small businesses if they can. Department of Energy is like that, for example.
right.
But it sounds like GSA for maybe certain types of purchases are going in a different direction where bundling of those services or bundling of the needs together is in the government's best interest.
Right. Something you guys may, if there's still some small businesses that, and we still have people on the line, I'm not sure. HR 3850 is the House resolution for the small businesses, where they're basically going to have repercussions to some of the agencies if they don't meet the small business goals of the 23%. Our next networking event at the Kennedy Center will be March 19th, and we're hoping to have some folks there that can speak about this bill and how it hopefully can help small businesses and help the agencies to actually meet their goals and really focus on awarding contracts to small businesses. But what I'll say with this is the small businesses, you have to understand that your value add is not just being a small business. Your real value is in the products and services that you offer. So at the bare minimum, you do need to meet all the qualifications and capabilities that are outlined in the solicitation or the RFP that you're responding to. The small business piece is just a additional box for them to check, and it certainly helps, but you really need to meet the basic requirements.
Can the 7 steps that you talked about be utilized for public relations and marketing firms?
If I understand the question, meaning a company that's selling public relations and marketing to the government?
Yes,
and
that seems so.
The AIM schedule? Yeah, yep, absolutely. It's for, I mean, this process is for any industry and all the schedules.
The MOBIS people are not answering emails. Some experience there and some advice?
I've got some contacts there. If you like, you can shoot me an email, and I'll be happy to give you some names and phone numbers. They're also on the West Coast, so if you're on the East Coast and you call them at 8 o'clock in the morning our time, they might still be in bed.
Is there a downside from moving a client from a direct buy to a schedule buy?
No, I mean, again, if you are selling products or services to a GSA schedule eligible buyer, then GSA kind of terms and conditions state that you should be selling through your schedule. Downside, you're going to have to pay the industrial funding fee at the end of the quarter, but and really keep track of those sales, but I don't see a big downside.
Might be more competitive. It might invite more competition in if it does move to the schedule.
Well, if it's a direct buy, if it went out, well, I guess depending on when that direct buy happened, was that something that had gone out for bid, and are the competitors on the schedule? What other differentiators do you have? And those sort of things.
Yeah, it really isn't the schedule. That's just the means to get the services or the goods purchased.
Right.
It's really all of the marketing, the strategy, getting in there and positioning.
Right. Absolutely. You need the market research, the sales, the strategy, the human being with a heartbeat that can go in there and shake the hands and build the relationships. And it is a process. It's you don't want to wait until you have the schedule to start selling it. because you're going to be, way behind the 8 ball. You really need to kind of do both in tandem.
Right. It doesn't take the place of marketing and all of that on the ground, time-consuming, relationship building, and intelligence gathering that's necessary to grow any business.
Correct.
It's just you need to know how it works so that you can use it effectively. Does does work gotten from states and other sources through the schedule count towards the $25,000 minimum?
Yes. The only thing that doesn't happen with the states, local, and quasi agencies would be that you're not going to receive GSA e-buy notifications from them. GSA may be making changes in the future, I don't know, to allow the state and local governments to purchase or send out kind of the RFP notifications that way. But yeah, that does, anything that runs through your schedule counts towards the $25,000, and it's also needs to be reported, and you need to pay the industrial funding fee tax.
Well, here's a great question, and I'm going to take notes on this one. Will sequestration happen on March 1st?
Let me shake my magic 8 ball and find out. I don't know.
And yeah, it's a great question. No one knows the answer.
Right.
And finally, how do we find out and sign up for your networking event?
If you've signed up for this webinar, then on Thursday at 10:15, actually, you know what? If you go to our website, jennifershouse.com, we have an events page, and it should be live there. Otherwise, Thursday morning, anybody that was on this call, you'll receive an invite for that.
Good. And they're great events, very well attended, and they're at the Kennedy Center. What could be better?
Right. Yeah, we had 250 people for our holiday event where we partnered with the Wounded Warrior Project, and it was a nice turnout and a lot of good relationships. And one of the examples I used today with Lisa James and Isaac Barnes was a match made in heaven there, a government match made in heaven.
Well, that was the last question, and they were really good questions. Jennifer, I know people appreciated the information that you passed on and your experience. Here's your contact information if people are interested in just learning more about the process or the pitfalls. Jennifer's a great source for that. She's also a great help to firms to meet their sales goals and really get positioned for the work. And so I want to thank everybody who came to the event, and also thank you, Jennifer. And it sounds like you want to thank people as well.
Yeah, thank you, Ed. Thanks to all the sponsors. Don't forget about NCRC. They are a great resource. If you're already kind of in the government contracting mix, you've got maybe a GSA schedule or an 8A certification. They're really great at the teaming piece of it and finding, good partners for you to work with and obtain more business. And I apologize for the answers that I was not able to provide, but I'd rather give you accurate information than tell you something incorrect. So I'll circle back and get some clarification on this.
Great. And there was one last question about whether we would show answers to the questions, and we'll sum those up and send those along probably after we get the PowerPoints ready to go. And you'll all get an email with access to the PowerPoints and then access to the recording that we're doing. And I have additional webinars that are taking place. If you just go to ersadvisors.com, you'll see some additional free webinars about federal business development, and we'll be focusing on how to approach an agency and messaging, and then several on individual agencies, what's happening in these agencies, and how to position yourself to market them for your services. We'll be covering Treasury, Department of Labor. We covered DHS already and several others, so I just encourage you to do that. And thank you all for coming. Just about all of you stuck it through right to the end. There's a quick survey that pops up at the end. If you could fill that out, it's very quick. It helps us improve the delivery of the webinars. So again, thank you very much. And Jennifer, thanks for taking the time to share your knowledge.
Fantastic. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.